Welcome to the Digital Culture Podcast, a podcast for people working in the creative and cultural sector and want to know more about digital. I'm your host, James Akers. Welcome to the first episode of the Digital Culture Podcast. We're recording this on the 5th of November, 2024, which, amongst other things, is National Redhead Day, apparently, which links into our guest quite nicely. So this podcast is going to be on a monthly basis, and we're going to interview all the tech champions that are in our team. Hopefully that will give you an insight into the skills that they have and their specialist areas and how they can help you in your skills development. Hopefully you'll get to know us a bit more as well, because we are lovely people. Before I introduce our guest today, what I thought I'd do is talk about what the Digital Culture Network is and how it came about. Back in 2019, there was a report commissioned by the government called Culture is Digital, and that identified that across the creative and cultural sector, there was a gap in skills when it came to digital. So the Digital Culture Network was created to address that need by having specialists from all areas of digital to help upskill people in creative and cultural organisations. We have tech champions in lots of different specialist areas, from accessibility all the way through to websites. You could be an individual practitioner or an artist, or you could be working in a cultural organisation. In England, you can have one-to-one support from the tech champions in the team for free. That surprises a lot of people, but it is free. We also do webinars, physical events, and we create online resources as well. Over the last 5 years, we have over 7,000 one-to-one support sessions with cultural professionals. On the back of that, we create webinars, physical events, and a range of different online resources on our website, which is digitalculturenetwork.org.uk. On there, you'll find all the resources we've created, recordings of past webinars, and the events list of what's coming up as well. On there, you can also sign up to our newsletter, which I highly recommend you do. You'll be the first to hear about all the things coming up. And please follow us on our social media channels. We are currently on LinkedIn and X. So with that said, I'm going to introduce my guest for today. I'm James. I'm one of the tech champions in the team. My specialism is data and analytics. I'm a white man with brown hair. I'm currently wearing a light green jumper, and I'm in my blue room in Preston in the northwest of England. My first guest is Katy.
Hello, I'm Katy. I'm a social media tech champion. I'm a white woman in her late 30s with mid-length red and blonde hair. I'm in a white room in Leamington Spa in Warwickshire.
Fantastic. Thanks, Katy. And we've got Nicola as well.
Hello, my name's Nicola. I am a social media tech champion. I am a white woman. I've got long red hair and I'm wearing a blue and black animal print top. And I am in a grey room. And I'm based in the south. I am in Eastbourne.
As it's National Redhead Day, it's quite exciting to have you both on.
I've got a few redheads in the team.
We have, don't we? Yeah. Thanks for introducing yourselves. What I thought I'd start off with is talking about what is a tech champion and what kind of support you offer. Now, Nicola, you've been here for quite a while.
Been here for over 2 years now. 2 years and 2 months.
Amazing. And Katy, is it 4 months?
4.5 months at this point, yep.
And between you both, what have you seen across the sector and what does a day-to-day as a tech champion look like?
So as a tech champion, a lot of what we do is chatting one-to-one with people. We get lots of different people looking to speak to us about social media. It's one of the most popular topics at the Digital Culture Network. And that can be anything from you wanting to talk about setting up some ads. If you're feeling inexperienced or not that confident about setting up ads, we can take you right back through it and we can look at making audiences and who you're going to be targeting. And we also will often speak to people about doing a social media audit. So looking at what you're posting organically and how we could help you to get some more engagement. We also have people come to us if something's broken and they're looking for support around how to fix it with the different social media platforms.
Is there a difference between your roles? We now have 2 tech champions because we were so busy for quite a while. Nicola was inundated. We had to bring Katy on board. How do you split the role between yourselves?
To be honest, we both do both. So we both cover both paid and organic social media, partly because we're experienced in both, but also because they're so closely intertwined. If you take your eye off one for too long, you will absolutely forget how to use it and the updates will happen and you won't know how to use it. So that's why we both cover both things.
My background's mostly in organic, but I've done a lot of advertising, whereas Katy is originally in arts, but then an agency background. So she has a lot of advertising skills, but like she says, we both do both specialisms, which is really nice because it means that we've got each other to ask if something breaks. Sometimes you get a double whammy and we'll both join you on the call.
2 for 1.
You've had your experience of working in the social media sector and doing all your things in the past. How do you keep up to date with what's going on?
We actually meet once a week just to look at what's happening in the world of social media because it moves so quickly. So we look through different updates. And we also meet once a week to talk about what we've seen from people we've worked with, if there's anything new and exciting. It's much easier with 2 of us. So if that's something that you're struggling with and you want to just check in to make sure that you're up to date with the best approaches for the different platforms, we can help with that as well.
We also put some of the updates in the newsletter, so that is just another reason to subscribe.
And you mentioned around organic versus paid. What's the difference between the two?
Literally the money. A lot of people refer to paid social media as campaigns. I don't love that because you can have organic campaigns on social media. But if you hear some people say social media campaigns, often they mean that it's paid. Most social media is organic in that you have a free page or profile on that social media platform. You post for free, you interact with your audiences for free. But when you put some spend behind something, that's when it becomes a paid social media post or campaign or advert. That's on things like Meta, it might be LinkedIn, TikTok, etc.
And is that the types of platforms you support on with social media? So we've got LinkedIn, Meta.
Yeah, so Meta is Facebook and Instagram. I would say that is a huge majority of our cases at the moment, but we are also talking to quite a lot of people about TikTok. LinkedIn comes up sometimes, X.
Sometimes we'll get the occasional one about things like Pinterest or Mastodon, Blue Sky, but it's much more rare. The majority of people want to come and speak to us about the big 4, which would be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and X.
With that in mind, looking at all the different social media platforms, because there are lots out there, do you have any top tips that you've seen recently?
Yeah, so it is changing all the time. Keeping up with social media is definitely half of the battle. One thing for me, I would say to be really careful of relying too heavily on your free analytics. So if you are planning to do some end of year reporting on your social media, do not wait until the end of the year to collect 12 months of data. Generally, you won't find everything that you need. You won't be able to see things like incremental follower growth and loss, and it will make your life much harder. So try and report your important statistics monthly to make your life easier.
Do you have a technique for doing that? Is it downloading stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So it might be downloading a CSV file of your data and keeping it somewhere safe. I was always a big spreadsheet user. I had lots of very large spreadsheets full of years of data. Just so I could create graphs and track trends and patterns and really know what's going on with my platforms.
We see a lot of crossover to my specialism when we're looking at stats and things taken from social media. So I help a lot of people work through that data. So if you do have this raw data extract, I can help you make it look nice and visualize it and do fun things with the data, which is like the creative part, which I really like. As you say, Katy, there's a limit, isn't there, to some of the data that some of these platforms provide now?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're on X, for example, and you're not a premium user, you'll find that you actually can't access some of your analytics. And I think even if you can, the limit's like 3 months.
Yes, 3 months you can see. That's all you'll be able to access. So like you were saying, keep on top of it because you're not going to be able to go back.
That's really annoying, isn't it? I think it's the same across different platforms as well. With Meta, it's a limited view. With ads, do you get a bit longer?
Yes, and you get much more detailed analytics with ads. There are actually 2 places that you can run ads in Meta, which makes things a little bit confusing. But literally today, I found an update where it shows you the difference between the 2 spaces that you can run ads. But if you're running ads in Ads Manager, then you automatically get lots and lots of data. You can create pivot tables within Meta, and it's a lot more detailed.
And the other place is just called Ad Center. And that's going to be if you're boosting.
Generally, if you're boosting or if you are creating ads for a page, you can still do it through ads, but you get a lot less control in terms of the ads that you run.
And then if you do it in the back end in the ads manager or adverts manager,
as it's now called,
you can do a lot more. You can change the placements, you can put on specific audiences and all sorts.
Yes.
And boosting is that you've already got an organic post that you've put out and then you're just putting some spend behind it to increase its reach, yeah?
Yeah, really good if you've got a tiny budget, because you need at least £5 a day to create something in Ads Manager. If you have less than that, then sometimes a boost is the way to go. Or if you just want to get more reach, as you say, I would encourage people to start thinking about creating ads in Ads Manager, because you can make your budget work much harder.
Katy's got a brilliant article about this as well on the website, about you using meta ads, and you can see a marketing funnel and you can find out about how to create some ads that are going to broaden your audience, and then later on how to convert them. So definitely check that out.
Oh, I love a funnel. Love it.
Love a funnel.
There's not enough funnels. So over to you, Nicola. Have you got any top tips at the moment?
Yes. So one of the things that I'm really keen for people to think about, particularly as we're coming towards the end of the year, is which platforms are you using, and do you need to be on all of them? This is particularly relevant if you're one of those people who's in a one-person team doing social media across, let's say, 7 different platforms, or you've got 7 accounts in total, and you're trying to spread yourself thinly across all of those accounts. Maybe it's only a small part of what you do in your job. Have a think about whether or not you need to be on all of them. Are all of them working? With some of them, are you just posting there because you always have posted there? We're really entering a time where you can be much more specific about which platforms you choose, and you can choose ones that are most relevant to your audience, are most relevant to your organization if you're in an organization, and you don't have to be everywhere. So that's my main kind of takeaway message, is please look at how much you're doing and see if there's a way that you could bring it down, because everybody I speak to is stretched very thinly across all of the different activities they're doing. So let's cut ourselves a break and go for the most important platforms.
Part of what you offer is that you can help people find the right platform for them, with where their audience is.
You can look at who your audience are, who you are, what kind of content you're putting out. So if you've got no video content, do you want to be starting up a TikTok? Because you're going to need to be making a lot of video content for that. And sometimes people will feel obliged to do it because it's expansion. And I think we've been told this message of like, you always need to expand. You always need to be doing more next year, improve on your targets. But actually, you could be using it to concentrate on what you're doing well and expand that instead of having to be everywhere and on everything.
Thank you. And Katy, have you got anything else to share?
Yeah, so a huge thing at the moment, which doesn't feel new, but is short form video. So it doesn't feel new because TikTok has been on the scene since, 2020? So has been a big part of our lives for quite a while now. And we all know that Instagram is moving further and further towards short form vertical video. So where your phone is held vertically rather than in landscape orientation. But what we're actually seeing now is other platforms really moving towards this space as well. So Facebook has started pushing their reels quite heavily from Instagram and on Facebook. LinkedIn now has a short form video section, which is very new. And YouTube are investing a lot in their shorts as well. And they're now contributing to overall YouTube rankings, which they weren't before. So short form video really is taking over, I think, and is something to pay attention to.
And if you are doing short form content, we have Dean, don't we, who is our content tech champion that can help with that.
We do have Dean. Dean's a wizard with how you're going to be filming and editing, and he can definitely help out if it's something that you don't feel very confident in.
And alongside that, to make your videos accessible, we have Roberta, who is our accessibility tech champion. Captioning is so important on these short form videos.
Yeah, it's really important for you to use captions. It's not just for accessibility either. There's a couple of other reasons. I mean, accessibility is obviously going to be a number one priority, but also a lot of people will watch without sound. So you're immediately going to be losing audience if they don't know what's going on. They're going to be skimming past. And also the algorithms will learn a lot more from your video if you're including captions on there, particularly if they're ones that you've added on the platform. It's going to understand the content a lot better and know who to show it to.
I think there's a percentage of how many videos are watched with sound off.
It's at least 60% of users aren't using sound when they're watching short form video, but it's different percentages on different platforms. I've seen that be as high as 80%. So you really need to include them if you want to get the message of your video across.
Between Roberta and Dean, you can get support in that area if you want it. Nicola, anything else from you?
Yes. The other thing I wanted to say was recently Instagram were talking about what's doing well for reach and what's doing well for engagement. And we are still in the stage where carousels are going to be doing the best for engagement. Now, carousels are when you have multiple images or videos within the same post. At least a year and a half ago, if not longer, they became the best performing piece of content on Instagram for engagement. I kind of expected it to be shorter lived than it is. I thought because of the emphasis they put on Reels, that Reels would take over, but they haven't. So if you are looking at your Instagram mix and the types of content you're putting on, please do consider using carousels. They get 2 outings. So they have the first time they appear on the person's feed. And then what they'll do is they'll move it on to the second slide within it and show it again in the feed. So there's twice the opportunity for the audience to see it and engage with it, which is great. So yeah, definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I've seen it as a user, and they're kind of like mini movies now because they have like a soundtrack as you're looking through.
Oh, you can add sound. Yeah. You can add some sound or some music to it.
Sometimes carousels with a music track added are also eligible to be shown in the Reels feed as well as your main feed. So it just gives you more chance to reach more people.
Oh, that is a good top tip, isn't it?
Thanks.
In your time as tech champions, have you seen any shift in requests from the sector?
Probably back when I started, so 2 years ago, the most common platforms that people were coming to speak about were Facebook and X. LinkedIn would often be an add-on that maybe they wanted to talk about, but they were using less. Over the last year, we've definitely seen a big shift to Instagram being probably the lead platform actually that people want to speak about, with Facebook maybe second, and there's a lot more people want to speak about LinkedIn and TikTok. There's been huge sort of turmoil in the social media sector over the last couple of years with lots of new platforms being introduced. And I think that it's just split organizations and audiences a bit across the different platforms. So that's probably the main thing, is that it's a lot more dispersed now.
For me, from a paid perspective, I am getting a lot of people speak to me about ads in Meta and understanding their account structure and understanding a little bit more about how to run ads for their page, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram or both, because you can run them on both from Meta. I think for a lot of people, they have maybe boosted a post here and there, but now they are starting to want to run campaigns in a more strategic way, which is really, really great to see, because that's where some honestly fantastic gains can be made. So that's really positive from my perspective.
As we mentioned earlier, we were talking about boosts then. So when you're running the campaign, you can be really more specific with what you're targeting and your ad spend is lower. Is that right?
It can be better distributed, I would say. So when you run ads in Meta Ads Manager, you can be really specific about the people that you want to target. You can start creating custom audiences from people who follow you on Instagram or Facebook or who visited your website. So you can start to create these warmer audiences who are more receptive to perhaps your sales messaging than a cold audience would be. I always liken sending a sales message to a cold audience on social media as going out into your local town square and ringing a bell and demanding that people buy things, because you haven't actually established if they know anything about you yet. And on average, we need to see an organization 7 times before we begin to recognize them and consider buying from them. And it's no different on paid social media.
Wow, that's really interesting. We've done things in the past about the marketing funnel and taking people on that journey. Is that something you'd recommend, is people that actually move further up the funnel and build that relationship?
Yeah. Everybody's starting at the bottom of the funnel is what we find. They're all starting at the conversion stage. And then where's the audience? And it's because they haven't done some ads already that are finding that audience.
And the way Meta's algorithm works, if you don't get many people who are taking the conversion action for your ad, it won't know what characteristics to look for in the rest of your audience to show that ad to people. That's how it learns. That's what the learning phase is for on your ads. So if it can't figure out who's going to buy, then it doesn't know who to show it to, and it all gets a bit scattergun. You're much better to move your attention further up the funnel. One of my top tips is if you're just going to run one ad for a show, for your museum, for your event at your library, whatever it is, go for a consideration objective and go for traffic, either link clicks or landing page views to your website. If people get to your website, they may well book a ticket. They may well take that conversion action that you want them to take, but Meta will be able to learn who to show it to because they are the people who are clicking on your links.
And if you are using that method, using link clicks through to your website, we recommend you set up UTM parameters. So that's campaign parameters. The UTM is Urchin Tracking Module.
Oh,
great quiz question, that.
I had no idea.
I always forget.
So UTM parameters will allow you, if you implement them for the link in your ad, so it's a bit of extra information at the end of your URL. So there's a question mark and then the UTM parameters sit there. It will pass that campaign information back to web analytics platforms like Google Analytics. So you can see the actual impact of those things within analytics versus what you're seeing from the ads analytics, because they can be wildly out.
Absolutely.
We have a resource for that on the website as well.
So one of the changes that I think is great that I've noticed is that the creative and cultural sector have become much better at using social media for entertainment, which is one of its primary purposes is to entertain. It's one of the main reasons that we ever open a social media app is to be entertained. And in the past, I've very much seen organizations and people kind of relying on just using the platform for selling tickets to shows and really like trying to funnel people away from the social media platforms into their websites. And I think there's much more of an understanding now that doesn't necessarily work. That isn't going to get people interacting with you and following you. And they're much more likely to engage with you if you're using the sites for entertainment purposes and you're doing fun posts and you're doing informative posts. And I think that we are getting better at that as a whole, as a sector. And it's definitely something that I'm really proud to see. Museums are doing a great job of this in particular. Shout out to museums, which have lots of fun polls, and Ipswich Museum's Creepy Doll poll is one of my favourites. Ipswich and Colchester museums rather are doing a Creepy Doll poll, and you get to vote who's the creepier doll.
Oh, perfect.
It's just a fun bit of entertainment.
Yeah, dolls are creepy.
These dolls are
so
creepy. But it means that people are more likely to engage with you and then see more of your posts. And then the more that they engage, the more they're going to see those selling posts that you want to do. But you're going to mix them up a bit with some fun content.
You mentioned earlier on that Meta was one of the primary platforms that people have been using. Have you got any tips specifically for that?
Yes. So I would ask that you please set up your Meta business portfolio and have everyone in your organization who needs to have access to it, to have access to it. Meta changed business managers to business portfolios earlier in the year. So it might not be a term that people are familiar with, but it's effectively the same thing. It's a container that all of your assets sit in. So when we say assets, we mean things like your page, your ads manager, if you have one, your pixel, if you have one, and all your users can sit in that container as well. So you can give people access to the things that they need in order to do the job in your organization. It's difficult if people don't have all of these things in one bucket for their business portfolio, because it can be difficult to get them to speak to one another. So you would like your Facebook page and your Instagram profile and your ads manager to all be in one place so that you can advertise really easily. But sometimes that's not the case, and it can get a bit tricky if someone has, say, ownership of the page, but they've left the organization. That can present problems if they're the only one with full control of that page. What we also see fairly often is that people will have a pretend user as the only person with full control of their page. This is because back in the dark days of social media, when Facebook first came onto the scene, you could have any profile as a business. So in my old organization, that's exactly what we did. And then Facebook said that only people, real people, could have profiles and businesses had to have pages. So that's when the shift happened. And because people may not have wanted to use their personal Facebook profile at that time, they created dummy accounts. But Facebook doesn't like this. And in fact, it can remove them. And if that is the only profile with access to your page and full control, you could end up losing access to your page or even the page itself. So please give it to a real person, two preferably, and use your business portfolios.
And also on that note, please, if you can, note down your profile URL. So not your page. Now we're talking about your individual profile. If you go to your profile, find the URL and note it somewhere, maybe in Notepad or something on your computer. The reason is if you get hacked, or if for whatever reason Facebook decides to take down your profile, they will ask what your profile URL is. Now, most people don't know because most people haven't made note of it. And usually when you go to Facebook, you just open Facebook and there you are. But as soon as you lose your profile and they ask for it, you can't find it. There's no way of us finding it. So please now note down your profile URL. It's going to save you in the long run. If you do get hacked, or if you do lose access to your personal account or your business account's been hacked, please get in touch with us. We can help with that. We basically can speak to Meta on your behalf. If you're following all of the help systems that are in place with Meta and it's working, that's great. There's no reason to. But often we find people will say, I've spoken to them and I'm still in this kind of loop of trying to speak to Meta about it. And in that case, come to us. We can help you to get back access.
I mentioned earlier on that because we speak to people every single day about all the different things they're doing, we create content that addresses those needs. And recently, I've had a couple from you too. So Nicola, you've done a webinar. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's gone really fast. I did a webinar on what goes into a social media strategy. It has a template with it. You can find it on our website. If you go to the Knowledge Hub, it will actually be right near the top because it's only just happened. But if you're listening to this in the future, then you can just filter by social media and you'll find it. So it has a template that you can follow. It's just for a really quick 2 to 3 page strategy. And it's mostly there because people, I think, are a bit scared about making a strategy. So I was trying to make it really simple and really easy for you to understand and to use. And then it gets it done and out of the way, and you can get on to the more exciting stuff that is actually actioning the strategy.
I thought the template was excellent because it just took you through each of those different steps of defining your audience and what kind of content, what platforms work well for you. And I think you've said it in the webinar that strategy is a scary word, isn't it?
It is a scary word. I don't know why it's so scary. I think it's because you're having to justify what you're spending your days doing. And it's like, right now, why? What's the master plan? So yeah, this will make it much less scary and you'll just be able to have it done and then start on all the fun stuff that is actually using what's gone into it and working out creative posts. And
what you can do with that strategy is you can push back, can't you?
You can. That's one of the main reasons I made it as well, is because a lot of the time for people, they will be being told by different people at their organization, or maybe it's like board members who will have an idea on what you should be doing. Realistically, most people have got very limited time. So what we want to do is to get you into a position where you've got some evidence as to why you're doing what you're doing. And you can say, that sounds great, but we don't have any room for that at the moment because this is what we've already agreed we're going to be working on. And maybe it's something for the future, and then just try and get it to fade away into oblivion. Their idea.
As you said earlier on, what you're trying to get people to do is to use less platforms and be more targeted where their audience is.
Exactly. Being a bit more strategic about which ones you're using rather than just making a new account because it's a new platform. I'm trying to nip that in the bud.
And over to you, Katy. You've created an article, haven't you?
I have, yep. So Nicola talked it up for me earlier. It is making your meta ads more effective. And as thrilling as I think that sounds, I promise it will be useful. It is applying a marketing funnel to your meta ads so that you can start to warm up your audiences and nurture them from just finding out about you to booking a ticket for one of your shows, buying something in your online shop, or just generally signing up to hear more about you. So it is to use your budget in a more considered way and make it go a bit further.
Fantastic. And all of these things are on our website. So do go to digitalculturenetwork.org.uk and you'll find all those things. Before I wrap things up, I just wanted to throw a surprise question out for you.
Oh, okay. All right, ready.
Okay. So as social media tech champions,
Okay.
what have been your favourite campaigns over the last 6 months?
That is a big question.
This is like asking us to choose our favourite child, James.
There's been some really great stuff on social media lately. One of our favourites, which honestly we are still entertained by, even as the trend is starting to die.
I know what you're going to say.
Probably because we're millennials, is the getting Gen Z to write your marketing script videos. So it started off with curries, and then in a really amazing way, and I think what Nicola was saying about how well museums are doing on social media for entertainment, because there was a lot of museums that picked up this trend and ran with it. So one of my favourites was the Royal Armouries did their version, and I particularly enjoyed when they said that Henry VIII had Riz.
Mad Riz, was it?
I think it was Mad Riz. Yeah, I think so.
Besides the creepy doll battle, another one that I've seen recently that I loved was South Bank Centre did a video that was Demure versus Barratt. It's a brilliant video. I think it was on TikTok originally, but it should be on Instagram as well. So check it out if you haven't seen it. They've used stills, so photos, and a little bit of like archive footage and music. And they've done Demure very mindful. And there was also the Brat Summer trend. So it was taking a piece of music and defining it either as Demure or Brat and showing the composer within the still whilst the music played. It was a very simple idea for a video, but it was perfectly executed. It's to exactly the right audience. So it was speaking to a younger audience than maybe they would have got, given that it's a piece of classical video, essentially. But it's making it relevant to a younger audience. So it was just perfect.
Fantastic. And we seem to be seeing a lot of that recently, about that cross-generational work of stuff that's targeted for younger audience, but older generations are absolutely loving it.
Yeah. I think that Gen Z, at one point, they were kind of too young for marketers to really be focusing on. And now we're very much in the period where Gen Z are the decision makers that marketers will go after because they're going to be the ones buying. So coming to shows. And so we're really seeing this move to try and understand them, I think, and to try and use the language that speaks to them, particularly given that we've now got the new generation starting to come up below them. So Gen Alpha, which is 2010 onwards. If you're born 2010 onwards, you're in Gen Alpha. And I think that Gen Z are feeling a little bit older as a result as well. I say that as I think I'm called a geriatric millennial. So
I thought it was elder millennial, which sounded more wise and
elder?
sage. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I've just identified as geriatric.
We're starting to see some Gen Alpha content on TikTok.
We are.
Which is really fascinating because it's a completely different style of humour. And I think that is probably making Gen Z reevaluate things a little bit in terms of the content that they're consuming.
It's really interesting from like a sociological perspective, isn't it? Gen Alpha's humour is, I think, primarily it's unhinged, and that's the point.
Yeah, I would, if you are on TikTok, go and have a look at what Nutter Butter are doing. It's an American brand, I believe, and that will give you an idea of Gen Alpha content.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this first episode of the Digital Culture Podcast from my guest, Katy Farrell.
Thank you.
And Nicola Barratt.
Thank you.
Remember, if you need any support with anything that we've talked about today, and you're based in England and you work in the creative and cultural sector, please do get in touch. You can get one-to-one support for free. It's unlimited and it's tailored to you, and we'd love to hear your stories and help you through all the things that you're trying to achieve.